time for your medicine.
From 2016 to the end of 2024, more than 61,000 Canadians have received MAiD. I really don't think we should say they have received it. I think it should be have been subjected to. MAiD accounts for 5% of all deaths in Canada. It's 1 in every 20. That's sick. Canada has one of the highest, if not the highest, per capita rates of assisted dying in the world. What kind of society encourages vulnerable people to end their lives instead of protecting them? An anti-white one, Max. Whether we like it or not, the demographics are going to say majority white because that's who it's been pushed on. Or sorry, let me refer to them the same way that Trudeau does. Old stock European Canadians. Yeah. More than 23,000 Canadians died on medical wait lists in the past year. That's from today. Yeah. Let's see. So this is the report from the National Post. More than 16,000 Canadians died. 16. Why did Max have 61? Was that a typo, I guess? Let's go back to the... Oh. Let's go back to that tweet really quick and check. It's 61. Okay, so Max had a typo there. It's 16. Just the same. Still 1 in every 20. 61 would have been really bad. Don't make me archive you. National Post. So this is from Sharon Kirky. Sign in or create an account. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is this. X. Oops, that's wrong. That's okay. I can just search here. One more step. Please complete the security check. I'm not a fucking robot. While I'm doing that, I can also open up the browser properly. Page was last archived 18 hours ago. Isn't that fucking handy? It doesn't look obsolete to me. Thank you. So the vast majority of people receiving MAiD last year had a, quote, reasonably foreseeable death, with cancer the most common underlying condition. Cancer. Cancer is getting more and more beatable every day. So if you still have the opinion that a diagnosis of cancer is a death sentence, stop having that. According to the latest update, 95.6% of Canadians who died by MAiD last year had a reasonably foreseeable death. As Canada approaches the 10-year mark of legalized doctor-assisted death, the number of annual deaths appears to be plateauing, according to the federal government's latest report on MAiD. A total of 16,499 people died by MAiD in 2024, just last year. However, the year-over-year annual growth rate in deaths has been shrinking from 36.8% between 2019 and 2020, to 6.9% between 23 and 24. Yeah, of course the number is shrinking. You're killing them off. While the data suggests that the number of annual MAiD provisions is beginning to... How fucking sickening is that euphemism? MAiD provisions. Is beginning to stabilize, it will take several more years before long-term trends can be conclusively identified. In all, MAiD deaths accounted for 5.1% of all deaths in Canada last year, a small 0.4% increase from 2023. Why is it getting more and more? Isn't this supposed to be safe, legal, and rare like Hillary Clinton's abortions? There have been 76,475 reported MAiD deaths in Canada since the practice was allowed in 2016. So in less than 10 years, it's more than 750,000. According to the latest update, the vast majority who died by MAiD last year had a reasonably foreseeable death known as, quote, track 1 deaths. They were older, 78 on average, than MAiD recipients who weren't near death, so-called track 2 cases, and more likely to have cancer. Yeah, we should talk about those track 2 deaths. That's people suffering from things like depression. Or in one fella's case in Ontario, deafness. Those who received a doctor-assisted death, God, what a fucking sickening euphemism. It's doctor-assisted suicide. Okay? This is Kevorkian. Literally Kevorkian. whose natural deaths were not reasonably foreseeable were mostly women, 56.7%, slightly younger, and had lived longer with a serious and incurable condition than track 1 cases. Along with neurological conditions such as Parkinson's disease, diabetes, frailty, autoimmune conditions, and chronic pain were conditions most often cited among people who weren't close to dying. Autoimmune conditions. I have an autoimmune condition. I have hypothyroidism. The latest data come amid concerns that some MAiD deaths are being driven by loneliness, hopelessness, and isolation. Gee, what could have possibly fueled those senses, those feelings? The fact that you were told to stay the fuck home and not have anything to do with anybody for 2 fucking years? And that psychological thinking, that still prevails. It's sickening. Isolation or loneliness wasn't reported as a, quote, sole source of suffering for any MAiD cases in 2024, according to the report. However, people approved for MAiD often report not one but multiple sources of suffering. Yeah, because it's easier to get diagnosed and recommended if you claim more sources. In 2024, loss of ability to engage in meaningful activities was most common, followed by loss of ability to perform basic tasks, daily tasks of basic living, like eating, drinking, dressing, and moving around. But there were some differences. Track 1, reasonably foreseeable, people were more likely to say their symptoms weren't being adequately controlled, or they were worried they wouldn't be. They were concerned they might not be treated appropriately and adequately. Gee, why would they feel that way in Canada? I thought we had one of the greatest healthcare systems in the world. The fuck we do. Quote, while track 2 MAiD recipients were more likely to report isolation or loneliness and loss of dignity. Isolation and loneliness. Get away from your screens. Go talk to people. If you're young, start a fucking family, because, go figure, it'll keep you alive longer. And it'll improve your quality of life. In all, Health Canada received 22,535 reports of MAiD requests in 2024. 16,499 were approved. Of the remaining, 4,017 died before receiving MAiD. So that's 20,516 people who died from MAiD because they were approved or were waiting for approval. 1,327 people were deemed ineligible, and 692 ultimately withdrew their request. Thank God 700 people went, maybe I don't want to die. The report's other findings indicate that people who receive MAiD don't disproportionately come from lower income or disadvantaged communities. That would be code for not white, suggesting they're more likely to be represented in higher income neighborhoods. Do we really need the euphemism explained here? The implication? Do you need it spelled out? Yeah, they're killing white people. They're also less likely to live in a remote area, suggesting they weren't driven to MAiD due to a lack of access to health services, according to the report. Yeah, because people who live in rural settings generally interact with each other a lot more. Most MAiD deaths occurred in Quebec, 36.4%, Ontario 30%, and BC 18.2%. 66.4, 66.6, 76.6, 84.6 was in those 3 provinces. The fuck? These are among the most prosperous provinces in our country. Cancer, especially lung, colorectal, pancreatic, and blood cancer. For the record, that should have a comma between colorectal and pancreatic. There's no such thing as colorectal pancreatic cancer. And blood cancer was the most frequently reported condition in nearly all age groups of people who died by MAiD in 2024, except those 85 and older for whom other conditions were the most frequently cited, like those aforementioned, feelings of isolation and loneliness and frailty. Good God, if you're this is one of the worst things about modern society. We have managed to destroy the nuclear family to the point that there's no one to take care of our old people anymore. Which means, the old people who are still alive have no sense of purpose because there's no young people for them to look after, to talk to, or to be looked after by. Loss of ability to engage in meaningful activities was the most commonly reported source of suffering. What do they mean by meaningful activities? Sick. Didger is back. Just 1 second, Didger. I have to change Windows so I can see what you're saying. Sorry. It's the downside of having a back. What are they bragging about the money they're saving thanks to MAiD? Not yet. Let me see what they say in the next bit. They're going back to the mature miners angle now, savages. Make life harder, convince white Canadians kill themselves, makes room for more imported replacements. Am I delusional or noticing something? You are noticing something with a capital N. Yeah. Let's see, where was I? Of the 16,104 people who responded to questions around disabilities, roughly 1/3 reported having it. 2/3 of them didn't have a disability. Are you fucking kidding me? The United Nations Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disability earlier this year called on Canada to repeal the 2021 law that expanded MAiD eligibility to people whose deaths aren't reasonably foreseeable, out of concerns that people with disabilities are seeking MAiD due to, quote, unmet needs, a systemic failure of the state party, according to a meeting summary. Who's the state party in Canada? Oh, yeah, the same cunts who brought in MAiD in the first place and then expanded it. And will expand it further and potentially make it involuntary at some point. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of us who want the death penalty brought back. We don't want it brought back so you can harvest their fucking organs. There were 2,266 doctors and nurse practitioners providing MAiD in 2024. However, a small number were doing a lion's share of provisions. 102 who provided MAiD 31 times or more were responsible for 38% of all MAiD provisions. So we have doctors who are doing almost nothing but being serial killers in this country. Sickening. Absolutely fucking sickening. Okay, let's go back to the game because I want to kill something really bad now. And I've got about a half an hour, so actually I've got dead on a half an hour now. Oh, and I'll stop the recording there.